Hello and welcome back to another edition of Austin's American Flyer. Today I think you'll find this little video clip somewhat interesting as we delve into one of the variations of crane that American Flyer made. They made several, including the first steam crane that was made before World War II began, so back in the O scale era, which kind of transitioned into S. But we're going to focus primarily not on the tin plate, but on the slightly more realistic brown hoist variation. These were more of a heavy-duty industrial crane, and they're kind of interesting in a lot of ways. Number one, they have two different dialable or changeable mechanisms, so you can lift the hoist and you can lift the hook and can actually use them to do things as they were intended. Another thing that's kind of interesting is the truck side frames are the same ones that they used on the longer tenders. So the tenders that you find behind Hudson and behind the Northern. That was something that was shared between those different types of equipment. And beyond that, I'm going to turn it over to some close-up shots and some narration. And my guess is by the time you get to the end of this video, or somewhere in the middle at least, you're going to be thinking, I need to go check my fleet. Beginning in 1950, American Flyer brought out this industrial crane, complete with a very heavy flat car, and like I said earlier, the heavy-duty side frames that are, triaxle, six-wheel, but they don't actually include the middle axle or wheel set, so they're just first and third wheel sets on each truck. But what's cool about these is they have cranks at the back for the primary beam, and then they have this one here that raises and lowers the hook. And the reason I decided to start with this one is because probably I'm not alone in the fact that I have some of these cranes that have seen better days. They oftentimes are partially broken. Maybe they've been stepped on, things are loose, it's just kind of a mess. But I wanted to say, here's where they started. A couple other things too. You see the gray flatbed here. We've got the stamp on, as I'm looking at this on my left-hand side, 644. And this particular model ran through 1953 when it was switched for knuckle coupler. And then the number obviously switched and became a 944. Here is a much cleaner version or example of this crane. This is one that I've been working on here for someone that wanted to own one of these, and I have several, and so this one's going to be leaving me. But as you can see, it's not unusual for them to look really nice with a little bit of cleaning. They've got some tackle here. They've got a main hook here. And then they also include a very small hook. And unfortunately, I can't tell you the specific names for all of these different pieces, but there you have it. The other thing that some of them do is they have an outrigger down here. This one I notice doesn't really move from side to side, but some of them that I have, it's actually can be super loose and like this one here, it just moves all over the place. So I think the intention is that would help keep the crane from tipping over in extreme weight conditions as, this piece pivots and moves to the side, because they do spin 180 degrees. But yeah, just a really neat piece. And I love the fact that American Flyer chose to do something like this, because again, it gives people children or adults that are childlike, the opportunity to have something that truly functions that you can play with. So you can also use it to, make scenes where wrecks are being cleaned up or whatnot. So let's move on then to the variation that happened next. That is the knuckle coupler version. And here is an example of one of those. And again, this one is similar to the first knuckle coupler version, the 644, but here's a 944. You'll notice that, of course, the shell is a different color. The hoist is a different color, and they did come in variations of colors. There was a red, a Tuscan, a black, and let's see, I believe a painted red maybe for the shells. and we'll get into a couple other variations shortly. But as you can see, they transitioned to knuckle coupler, and the 6 became a 9, which Flyer did so often. One other variation that I thought was interesting, and I don't quite understand this either, but on this one that I showed you first, the cranks actually have a little nub on the side of them. So both the cranks on this 644 have handles on them, I guess you'd call them. But on this 644 here that I was cleaning, there aren't any of those extra handles, and you can see there weren't ever any of those. It's not like something was broken off. So again, that's probably another variation that I might have missed in Doyle's book. I think maybe just for the sake of those of you that don't happen to have a copy of Doyle's book, let me just quickly go over some of the theme and variations, just in case that's something that you'd like to look into your own collection and just see what exciting things you may find. So going back to 1950, so this is a 644. If you have a Tuscan colored cab, so that would be a little bit darker red than the ones I've shown you here. So this is definitely a red, not a Tuscan. But if you have the Tuscan variation and you have a green boom, that has a scarcity rating of 6. And that's, like I said, that's a type 1. Type 2 had a green boom with the unpainted red plastic, and those are scarcity of 4. So that's what this one would be, and this one here that is still in somewhat disrepair. So those are a scarcity of 4. So as far as I can tell, that's the most quote-unquote common crane according to Doyle, and even so, I mean, that's starting at 4. So these apparently weren't as common as you might think. So the Type 3 then had unpainted red cabs and an unpainted black plastic boom. Okay, so combining this with the red. And then Type 4 had black cabs and black booms. Again, this is a 644 is what they're referring to. And that was a scarcity of 4 again. Okay, I don't have any to represent those variations in the 644. But let's move to starting in 1953. We go to knuckle couplers for all Flyer sets, even though they did a Hudson set and a Northern set in 52 with knuckle couplers that had a K designation. So you do have a few pre-53 engines and cars with knuckle couplers, but at 53, everything switched over. So let's take a look at some of those variations. The Type 1 had a, let's see, it was painted gray chassis and black boom. And so what we're seeing in front of us here would be pretty much the standard that came out. And that has a scarcity rating of 3. So a little less common than the Link variant. Now here is where I thought things started to get a little bit interesting. So if I can get my cranes to roll. Okay, so here's where things, again, like I said, I seem to get kind of interesting. So again, Type 1, black with gray chassis on the scarcity rating of 3. But there was a Type 2 that had a slight variation, and that was the chassis was a little bit more blue. And if you look at the difference between these two colors, you'll see that this has a bit of a blue tinge to it, kind of like that pedestrian bridge that I had a video of a few weeks or a month or so ago. It's kind of a metallic, so it's not a real bright blue, but as you can see, there's definitely a color difference between these two. And the cranes with metallic blue base have a scarcity rating of 6. So again, not very many of those. So you might want to check your collection and just see, do you have one that's got kind of this bluish tint to the gray, and see if you might be surprised by having something a little bit more rare. But then there was actually a Type 3. And I don't know if those of you watching have seen the difference yet, but this happens to be an example of a Type 3. And what's unusual about the Type 3 is only one characteristic or one trait, and that is instead of the stamp being here, the stamp's up here. That's the only thing that's unique, taking it from, the standard release, which was our scarcity of 3, to this variation, which according to Doyle is so rarely traded, he didn't even give it a scarcity rating. And I thought, oh my goodness, look at this. This is so fun. So again, here's typically where the stamp is. See how it's there on the left-hand side. And if you have one on the right-hand side, according to Doyle, you've got something that's really, really rare. And what's kind of exciting about that is, Doyle's book goes from a 1 to an 8 in terms of scarcity. But if he doesn't list a number, then that means, like I said, it's just it's a unicorn. So check your stock. See what you might have laying around. And at least in my case, I'm not even sure how long I've had this car. I was trying to remember for sure where I got it. And I'm pretty sure that I picked this up probably 4 years ago now with a bunch of stuff. And, I just didn't think anything about it. I mean, it's a nice car, but, I don't know that I've ever really paid attention to cranes. So, at the end of the day, it's not worth $1 million because I don't think so. I mean, if you want this for $1 million, let me know because it'll be yours. But my guess is these are not something that are wildly sought after. At least I've not heard of anyone who really collects the crane cars out there and would be interested in paying huge sums of money for this. But it's still fun to have an example. And so I thought I'd share that with the rest of you, just in case maybe you'll stumble across something cool. Today I'm going to try to restring this crane. Someone restrung it at some point and it's not quite right. So I've got a list of instructions and I'm going to follow those. For starters, it says tilt your crane at 90 degrees and then there's 4 screws, 2 in the front and 2 in the back. I've already taken the front ones off and I'll get the back ones. But what I'm seeing here is just this piece is for the boom is not correct. And so I'm going to show you how it should be, and then I'm going to turn the camera off and I'm going to fix it just because I think it'll be too tedious to watch me try to undo the knots and all that. But basically, right now, the one end is tied to this pulley, the other end is tied back here inside to this shaft. And that's not quite right. While the X is right, this should come around here and actually go up to this hole here and be tied into this hole. And then the other piece that's not quite right is the line should then come around this side and go back down into the shaft, axle, if you will, for the crank. So that's where things are a little bit off. This going around here and down in the back is not right. So anyhow, like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and redo it, and then once I redo it, I'll bring it back and we can kind of look through it again. Because I know I've had different people ask me at times, how do you restring these things? And well, I have instructions, so I'm going to follow those, and you can come with me. All right, so welcome back. Now, this is what I did, and if I'm following the instructions right, this is the way you want to do it too. And I triple checked them, so someone out there can tell me if I did it wrong, but I don't think I did. All right, so first of all, I untied one end of the string and undid all of the loops, and then I went ahead and tied the loose end here, and I started working backwards. So I'm going to just have you follow me through that series here, and then if you end up getting in a spot where you need to restring one of these cranes, hopefully this will be a good reference. So we're tied here, We come down, go to the right-handed lower pulley, go around to the outside of that pulley to the top right, go around that, and then cross over to the left side, around the lower left, up the outside to the upper left, around that, and then down into the shaft with the crank. So hopefully that is something that those of you that are struggling with these cranes will find helpful. Right, so I went and found a pretty beat up crane I had, and it had this piece on it. So I went ahead and removed that and added it to this one. And like I said, this one has this tiny hook already, and it was again wired differently than the instructions I have. So I'll just go over that with you. So starting again from where I tied it and working backwards, we're going to get this out of the way. The instructions said to use the hole that's up here to put the end of your string, to come down, go through the hook, up through this pulley, up through this section. I'm not sure what this tackle is called. But then to go up over this metal pin that goes through here versus the plastic piece that's right here. So that's something different, but I imagine it'll slide a little more easily on that metal pin than it does the plastic. And then of course that string goes back to your crank. So just again, tie it off through the hole up here above this imitation plastic pulley. See that? There we go. Then come down, go through this pulley, up around this pulley, back down through this pulley, up behind this plastic pin, through this metal pin, over it, then back down to your winding axle. Then this hook, I don't know again for sure what this is. I'm not a crane person, but that then is tied through the hole that goes through this imitation pin. And I put a knot on the bottom and pulled the string up through. Just kind of drape it over there. I'm not sure, again, what all you use that for, but kind of fascinating.